Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to be talking about affiliate programming, and I'm going to be sharing some tips and tricks to help you set up a week of programming and sort of how that can fit into a bigger program. And I think one of the key things I'm going to try and get across in this video is trying to incorporate a bit of structure within affiliate programming, but allowing there to be variance which makes sense. Okay. So just a little bit of a background. I coach mainly CrossFit competitors and weightlifters and people who are following just a strength and conditioning program. So they're very much going through a lot of repetitive training progressions. However, I do have experience coaching in an affiliate and also programming for affiliates. I've programmed for gyms that I've actually worked in, and I've also programmed for gyms remotely. It is a little bit of a different challenge, and there is always this sort of this struggle or this battle or this balance that we need to try and get between sort of structure and making sure the programming is delivering really good results, but then also variance, and how do we get that. So to give you a bit of an idea of how I would structure a day, and then this sort of will tell you a little bit more about how I would be programming these days as well. So the sessions that I have written in the past and the way that I sort of would coach a session would be going over a quick brief, no details, just literally, hey guys, we've got some back squats today, and then we're going to be going into a conditioning that's a little bit short, and we've got some power cleans and some burpees to do. So I wouldn't be covering sets and reps and any of that business. It would just be a chance just to bring the group in and just get their attention. And then I would take them for a general warm-up straight away. And I picked this up from a coach that I actually worked with, like over 10 years ago. And one of the things I noticed was, quite often coaches spend way too long in workout briefs talking about the workout and trying to sort of share their knowledge and share a lot of information that isn't necessary. It's definitely going to be helpful to share that knowledge at certain points, but in that setting, it's really, really difficult to get people's attention. I mean, if someone is literally just finished work, they're coming into a 6 p.m. class, and then the coach is there talking for 5 minutes about, the back squats and the tempo and the reason why they're doing it and why it's part of the bigger plan and all of these types of things. I feel like it just kills the energy very quickly. So I think a small, brief, general warm-up, get them moving, get them reacting to your voice, get everyone working together, like get the group sort of together so that everyone knows, all right, I'm in my class, I need to do as coach says. And then after that, you can then start going through briefs once you have their attention. There would be a strength part, you would go over a brief, and then I would make the specific warm-up for the day, focused on whatever the strength or the skill portion is. And then there would be a quick brief for the conditioning. At this stage, they've probably glanced at the workout, 2, 3, 4 times, so they know what's coming up already. There will be a preparation for the conditioning, and then the conditioning piece itself. Now, what's quite popular these days is for people to sort of say, oh, you only need to do one thing in a session. Your whole CrossFit class needs to be oriented around the 12-minute Metcon or whatever it is. Now, I do believe that that's important for coaches to understand how to do. It shows that you're not just filling the session up with a bunch of volume, which is just keeping people busy and is just making it easy to coach. Because I think that, people who are writing programs and gym owners, they have the challenge of making the sort of the program in itself like idiot proof, right? Like where if you keep people busy, that, the coach is going to be able to sort of fill that time, and they're not going to finish the session 15 minutes early with everyone sort of twiddling their thumbs and doing some useless stretching at the end. So I do believe that is something which people need to learn how to do, and coaches need to learn how to, warm up a group for a 12-minute workout, and only just doing that, going through, practice rounds, doing a bit of a detailed skill progression or something along those lines for the movements that might come up in the conditioning. But I do think that having, a skill or a strength portion and then a conditioning portion every single session is the way to go. If you ask any of those people who say, oh no, you only need to do one thing, there shouldn't be 2 parts to your workout, if you ask them what they do for their training, most likely they do 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 parts. Okay. I think it's fine for people to do, a strength piece, a skill piece, conditioning piece, and maybe a bit of a finisher at the end. I think that that's completely fine, and we shouldn't be just trying to sort of take that out of people's programming just from sort of like more of a, I would call it like an ideological view that some people have around CrossFit. So that's sort of the way I program. Those are the types of sessions that I do. Now moving into the first part. So these would be some of the things that you would now start to trying to establish within the program itself. So before we think about what we're doing on what day and everything like that, there's a few different things which I'm going to cover. And the first one is a static day. So these are usually things that are more specific gym going from gym to gym. There may be an emphasis on barbell focused movements on a Monday. Workouts on a Wednesday are always a team workout, so like a midweek type thing. Maybe you do Sport Friday, which would be more of a competitive CrossFit style session for the Friday, or it could be a mashup workout on the Saturday where you're doing 3 different conditioning pieces. So I think that it's important that before you write anything, you just establish, okay, we do team workouts on every Wednesday, or you do, one Wednesday you do a hard, long workout, and then another Wednesday you do a team workout, and you can alternate like that. And what you do then is you're just sort of starting to fill up essentially where those types of days go and what the plan would be going for that. And if you are, doing 6 classes a week, Sundays, or you have like a day off, then having one of these days is going to be taking up, just under 20% of, I don't know what 100 divided by 6 is. It's just going to be taking just under 20% of your programming for the week. So it sort of makes the decision for you. The second thing would be moving into thinking about like the actual progressions that you're going to go through. So we'll go through this one first. So the first one is going to be static progressions. So this is generally how people view the progressions that you'll go through for affiliate programming, for CrossFit programming. So it could be that you are following a back squat cycle, and then in that back squat cycle, you have 3 sessions which are building up to a tough 8. Okay, so that's what we have here. We've got 4 sets of 8, 4 sets of 6 to 8. So they're starting to flirt with those heavier weights that potentially they can hit on the tough 8, and then they go for a tough 8 on the 3rd week. Okay, so that's one version of it. Another version could be you're doing a 12-minute EMOM, and on odd minutes you're doing handstand push-up progressions, and then on the even minutes you're going through another movement. Okay, and this could be a part of a conditioning piece. So we've got 12-minute EMOM, handstand push-up progression, double unders. In the following week, we're increasing the time. So we're increasing the total volume of the handstand push-ups by 2 rounds. And then we're now using box jump overs on the other minute. So it's a, bit of a plyometric exercise similar to the double unders. And then for the 16-minute EMOM, we are increasing, again, the handstand push-ups, but we've changed up that other minute for a row. And then what we're looking at here is just, all right, your typical progressions. Do a little bit heavier, do a little bit longer, do more volume, that type of stuff. And that's what we're trying to get from our static progressions. And these are usually going to be the main focus for a cycle. So it could be, hey, in this cycle, we are going to be focusing a back squat progression. There's going to be building up to a tough set of 8 or something like that. You can use this for strength and you can use it for conditioning pieces. And I would recommend trying to pick maybe 1 or 2 of each. So 1 or 2 static progressions for strength, 1 or 2 static progressions for your conditioning. And then that way you can look to thread those in on a weekly basis or on a bi-weekly basis, which I'll sort of cover in a minute. Then you have varied progressions. Now for the varied progressions, this is going to be more, let me see if I can move this. Cool. So this is going to be more of sort of just general, okay, we are going to be working through this time domain or these movement patterns, and you're a little bit more loose with what you're doing. So for this example, we have an upper body pulling and an upper body pushing superset. And for the first week, you're doing a strict pull-up progression or a strict pull-up, then you go dumbbell bench. Then you have dumbbell rows into strict dips. And then you have barbell rows into ring push-ups. And what I would recommend is doing, if you are going to follow something similar to this, is pair up a gymnastics movement with a just regular weight training movement, because if you've got two gymnastics movements paired up, you've got two sets of like long potential progressions that you might need to sort of be relaying to your classes. So try to pair those harder, more technical movements with those simpler movements. Way it could work with conditioning would be like, we're doing long AMRAPs on a certain day, and it's going to be a triplet of, sort of 3 conditioning based movements. Every movement's going to be taking you around 40 seconds to 60 seconds. So it's a fairly high turnover workout. And then here we have just sort of some typical combinations that you may see. And this can work quite well. And I would recommend that you, again, choose about 1 or 2 strength progressions that are varied and 1 or 2 conditioning progressions which are varied. And again, you can start to give these across as like the cycle focus, but these can be more sort of like secondary focuses for the cycle, which, and I would recommend as well with the varied progressions is you can actually stretch those out for a bit longer. So with a static progression, you're most likely, you're going to sort of burn people out after a while. They're going to get bored, or they're just going to stop improving. But with a varied progression, you can actually stretch those out, and you can be like, okay, we're going to be doing this for 12 weeks. And then what you can do is you can sort of figure out those types of things that are going to be more broad and quite good for them to sort of just keep in. Accessory work is usually a good thing to implement this type of stuff on. So you've probably sort of seen already that like some of these days are staggering, and this is sort of what I would do and what I recommend people do to sort of avoid this. On Mondays, we do everything like this. On Tuesdays, we do everything like this. On Wednesday, because if you follow that structure, then what can it lead to happening is just people missing certain days and then their training being very much biased in a certain direction. So, and one mistake I made in my programming early on was trying to devote upper body days and lower body days for CrossFit classes. I think for general physical preparation, which is what we're trying to get with this type of programming, using sort of more of just a full body approach. But what you can do is you can start to alternate the styles of training they're doing. So I would recommend thinking it more from like we're going to do weightlifting one day, gymnastics another day, conditioning on another day. Because weightlifting will inherently work more of your lower body, gymnastics will inherently work more of your upper body. So you're starting to get that sort of split of upper body, lower body, but you're also starting to get a split of how much you're loading the body as well. So like with weightlifting, you're using a lot of external load. With gymnastics, you're controlling your own body weight. Things are a bit more controlled. They're less explosive. They're a bit slower, depending on the type of gymnastics. So you're starting to get variation just from the types of training you do. You don't have to go with that bodybuilder type split, because what it can do is it just, like I said, it can make someone's training more biased in a certain way. And it also just builds this expectation with clients that you only train your lower body on one day and you can't mix it up. And people can get a little bit, they can just get like, it's interesting the ideas that members pick up just based off of like how you structure a program. So getting into how we separate these things over the course of weeks, months, what I use is more of a staggering day approach. So we have like an A day, a B day, a C day, or you have certain progressions you're working on those days. So let's say, for example, in this program, Wednesdays are static days. That's Teamwork Wednesday. Saturday is Throwdown Saturday. So every Saturday they do a hard CrossFit workout. Sundays are rest days. So in this situation, we have like Monday, and let's say this is a heavy barbell day. Tuesday is more of your gymnastics day. And then Thursday is going to be more of you could call it more like a miscellaneous day, right? You're going to be doing maybe some carries with some static holds for some movement and some strength work. And then you're going to go into a conditioning piece, which is a little bit more open-ended. And then let's say, for example, you have 4 days that you can allocate your progressions to, which are not, set out by the structure of the static days. What you would do is you would choose an odd number of days which you are going to program, or you would choose an odd number of days that you would separate these sessions from each other. So here we have 3 sessions within 4 days that you can potentially allocate. So it goes heavy barbell day, gymnastics day, miscellaneous day, back to the heavy barbell. Monday you start on the gymnastics, Tuesday miscellaneous day, Thursday back onto the barbell, and you move like that. And what this does is it just keeps it a bit, if you have people who have one of those memberships which is like 3-4 times a week, like 2-3 times a week, it allows them to also get some variance within their training as well. Okay. And I recommend that this is like, once you have an idea of how you would, what you're going to put into the program, this is how you would try to sort of structure it. And then here you can see that week 1 is set out and week 4 is exactly the same. And then you would just basically like find if I would then start to allocate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, 5 different styles of days. It would then take 5 weeks. I think it would take on the 5th week, it would then cycle back to whatever the week 1 it was. Okay, so your weekly ingredients. So creating that week, you've got your static days, you've got your static progressions, and you also got your varied progressions. Now, piecing it together, this is what it would look like. You would have all of those buckets, and then you would start to pinpoint them and allocate them to certain days. And this is what maybe things would look like after the first, let's say you're doing your first programming session for the month. This is what it would look like. So you have some days which are empty and that type of stuff. But then what you can do is you can, on those days, start to just use more of those that variance and start to implement more of these, not random, but these more varied CrossFit workouts. So you're hitting a good breadth of different movements, time domains, and workout styles throughout the week. And then finishing up, so the process would be every training cycle you do. So whether you do, 4-week cycle, 6-week cycle, whatever it is, you would establish what the static days are. You would choose your varied and static progressions. One thing I've done in the past is I've always just chosen strength focus, skill focus, conditioning focus. Have those 3. And then you can also have maybe those will be your primary, and then your secondary progressions can be more of the varied progressions. And again, you can have more of a secondary strength progression. Could be some, something like some single leg strength work, that type of stuff. Things which are a little bit different. You could have your secondary skill progression. So this could be, something a bit more open-ended. And then you'd have your conditioning progression as well. Sometimes with the conditioning progression, it can be good to have like a benchmark workout, but can also be good to just have like, as I showed you before, go in for those like 20-minute AMRAPs, 22-minute AMRAPs, and you're just trying to extend the length of time. You fill in the month of the cycle. So you just sort of, your first programming session is you just putting things here, there, and everywhere. And you just create like a loose structure. And then every single week you go in, you refine it, you add in all the other details, you add in the finisher here, you make the conditioning pieces on the days you don't have conditioning, you make the strength pieces the days you don't have strength work. And then you just ensure that there's not too much crossover during the week. So you're not smashing certain movement patterns or certain parts of the body too much. And you make sure you get a nice breadth of skills, right? You're not just doing your gymnastics work for the week is not just toes to bar one day, chest to bar another day, muscle ups another day. You want to get some pressing in there maybe. And then you also just ensure that there isn't too much crossover from last week. So you look over the previous week and you just say, okay, how does this look compared to last week? Do we have, some of the same combinations occurring in terms of your conditioning? And then once you've done that, you're pretty much sort of good to go. So on a cycle basis or a monthly basis, you're sort of planning things out, and then each week you're filling in the gaps and you're sort of just tying up some loose ends and that type of stuff. Anyway, I know this is a little bit different from the usual programming that I talk about, working with athletes on sort of more one-to-one, super specific type stuff. This is a little bit more open-ended, but I found that these are some quite good little tactics to sort of use within programming for affiliates and CrossFit programming if you want to try and incorporate a bit of structure and a bit more sort of these strength and conditioning ideas into the training for a gym. Anyway, if you have any questions or any feedback or anything like that, then pop them in the comments, and thank you very much for watching.